Hi, everybody. I'm Tanya Marie Dubé, and you are watching The Empowered Woman. Thank you so much for being here again today. My guest today is the lovely Maggey Felix. Maggey is an accomplished marketing specialist and entrepreneur who contributes to the journey and the success of startup founders by helping frontier technology companies amplify their brand and strategically market their solutions. As a leadership coach, Maggey empowers people to powerfully create a life they love, something we love on this show. Maggey is also committed to developing extraordinary world leaders, which I love. Welcome, Maggey. How are you today?
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. As always, I want to remind everybody that Maggey's got a really awesome free gift for you, and she's going to explain everything to you at the end of the interview. So please make sure that you stay through the whole thing, and she's going to teach you how you can use it to benefit you. So Maggey, should we get started?
Let's do it.
Oh my gosh, you have such a fascinating life. We've spent some time getting to know each other. I love your career and your path. And the first question I have for you is, you've spent years as a leader in a male-dominated industry in cybersecurity. How did you end up there, and what did you discover along the way?
Oh, wow. I love that question. It's such a huge part of my life. So let's see. I've always been such a determined woman. I always knew I wanted something really big for my life. And so I decided I want to move to Washington, D.C. I majored in political science in school. I grew up in Texas. And so I wanted to go to Washington, D.C. and work on Capitol Hill and become a lobbyist. And so that's what I did. I got in my car and drove from Texas to D.C. And in the process, I worked as an intern, a non-paid intern on the Hill. It's where you start. And so I did that, and I waited tables at night. I lived with 5 people at one point. I lived with a couple in a transitioning area, and it was definitely a journey. And so after about 6 months of searching for a job, I had an opportunity in the cybersecurity industry, which was still very new and sort of foreign to me, off the Hill. So it would be with a private company, not what I came to DC for. And so I had an opportunity to go work with them. And then at the same time, I got an offer to come back for a second interview on Capitol Hill, which is why I was in DC. Wow. So I was really at a crossroads. And so I'm a Christian woman. Feel strong about my faith. And so I just prayed, God, please send me some sort of sign to know what to do here. I'll never forget the day I had, just 2 different directions I could go. And so at that same time, I got a call that said, you could have the job on the Hill, and we just need you to wear a little less makeup and don't wear your boots. I was like, wow, okay. Great. So that was my sign, really. So I ended up going and working with the cybersecurity company. It's a male-dominated industry, and so it was risky. And what I got out of it was that, to be the leader that I was committed to being, I had to take risks. I had to get outside my comfort zone and do something completely out of my control, really trust in my faith. And I don't have to change who I am in the process. So that was the biggest lesson, and it's worked out so well. It's how I ended up here in beautiful San Diego. And the cybersecurity industry really has been so welcoming, really. And there's so many opportunities for women, and we need more. So it's really been fascinating.
Wow, I love that. I love that you prayed for your answer and you recognized it when it came to you. I think that's really important. I think a lot of the times, when we're facing crossroads or we're going through adversity in life, we'll ask for something, and then it comes. And I've said this before in the summit, so everyone listening, you may have heard me say this before, but I find it fascinating. So many times we ask for something that we want, and then it comes to us, but it's not exactly in the package we expected it to be. So we miss it. We miss that we just got what we asked for.
Yeah.
Or conversely, we ask for the wrong thing and we keep getting it over and over and over again.
Absolutely.
Well, my next question for you is, you've had a series of personal breakthroughs over the past 10 years. What did you have to personally give up to become the leader that you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. So, I'd have to say giving up being right.
Yes.
That was such a huge moment for me in my life, really. A couple years ago, I got involved in an organization called Landmark, and I discovered there that who I was being as someone that was always right about everything was really not who I am, and it was just a pretense. It was something to cover up the fear of embarrassment and the fear of something terrible happening if I'm wrong. And so I was just always someone that had everything all together. And it served great in my life, where I've been able to do and accomplish some amazing things. What I missed out on was a lot of real relationships with people. And I think that's what life is all about, is really opening yourself up to people, being vulnerable. It's okay to not know everything. Of course you don't, and just being able to level with people. And that's what I wanted. I always wanted people to just open up to me and be vulnerable with me, but I wasn't doing that myself.
So it was hard to get that in return. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was so concerned with always like appearing that I had it all together. And like the second I really got that I'm just, this is not who I am, I've been able to create so many amazing relationships and really take on this path of being an extraordinary world leader.
Wow, I love that. Now, you shared a story with me about a kitten when you were little. Did you want to talk about that story? Because it's lovely, and I think that it's the beginning of why you always needed to be right, from the way you explained it.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. It is how I discovered. I didn't just wake up one day and go, "Oh, I'm always right." It wasn't that easy. So, which is another reason I really love, doing the Landmark work. And I had an opportunity to really look at who I am, why I am the way I am, how did I get this way? And it all started when I was 3 years old. I grew up, like I said, in Texas, in a suburb. My parents always had cats and animals. And so when I was 3 years old, my parents told me I could have a kitten. I could pick out of the brand new litter that we just had, and it would be all mine, and I could name it. So I picked the black one, and I named it Lucky, and I went everywhere with Lucky. And so one day I thought, well, let's go down the slide together. And so it was one of those metal slides, and so we walked up the stairs together, and I went first, as I wanted to show the way, make sure it was safe, and then I pushed Lucky down after me. And Lucky landed on the ground and was moving all around, and I got so excited about it. I thought, yay, Lucky's dancing. This is fantastic. So I run over to my parents. I'm like, Mom, Dad, come here, look. Lucky's dancing. And they just stared at me as if I had done something really terrible. And they picked up Lucky and whisked him away. And Lucky ended up dying. And that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is I was saying to myself, no, Lucky's not dying. It's not hurt. It's dancing. And at that moment, I made a decision about my life that I was going to be someone who was always right. And something really terrible might happen if I'm wrong. Not to mention I was extremely embarrassed, in that moment. And so fast forward, 28 years, I'm like, we've told the story about Lucky as, a funny, joke, and this is what happened. And, until it really hit me, like the impact of that situation and really looking. And so I became someone who was always right. I had everything figured out. You couldn't tell me how to do something or what to do. And, like I said, I've been very successful inside of that. And I also had a wall up with people. I wanted to make sure I always appeared as someone who had it all together.
This is why I think it's really important in life for us to look at our belief systems and to try to understand what pieces of who we are authentically who we are, or are they because of outside circumstances or because of influences like family and friends and teachers throughout our lives. I think that you're talking about having missed out on so many relationships because you needed to be right. I think, but what you really wanted was people to open up to you. That kind of incongruency comes from being stuck somewhere. Like you're not who you think you are, living out your life is not really who you are. And so this is where we start to feel this like disconnect, right?
And it
So
stops us. Like it stops us in achieving and becoming, you know, an extraordinary world leader. It stops us from that. And you hit the nail on the head, I think, with the authenticity piece. Is it took something, it really took courage to look at where I was being inauthentic and had to get honest with myself, you know, and the people in my life about that.
Sorry, hold on one second.
Great.
Sorry about that. I had a little bit of a cough. You also, there was something else that you wanted to talk to me about, personal breakthroughs and playing small. Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's all, you know, inside of, you know, what I've learned out of discovering, you know, I can be someone who's intimate and vulnerable. And so playing small, I've stayed involved in Landmark, and I'm now a coach for the self-expression and leadership program, which is the third part of the curriculum. And we have projects where we fulfill on what really matters to us. So for me, I've discovered what really matters is people realizing and embracing and expressing their own greatness. Whether that's they're loving, they're a great daughter, they're a good friend, that they're passionate, whatever that is, and what comes to mind when you think of greatness. And, you know, in doing some research, I found that only 4% of women in the world believe that they're beautiful, which is up 2% from a couple of years ago.
Wow, that's crazy.
85% of the world suffer from low self-esteem. So it's not a conversation that exists, like where people are free to express their own greatness and talk about what they're good at and things they love about themselves. And so I'm really committed to creating this conversation about expressing your greatness. And so I created the Great I Am Project, where it started on Facebook, so people can post things they love about themselves and tag people. It's called Great I Am.
Great I
Am.
Am.
On Facebook, it's at Great I Am Expressions. So you can post things you love about yourself. All the instructions on how to play with the project are on there. And as a coach, I'm coaching other people on their projects to fulfill on what matters to them, whether it's fatherhood or third world countries and creating water wells, whatever that is. I'm coaching people that are creating projects like that. And I realized as a coach, I wasn't in action on my project. And I had to get really authentic with myself because my coach was like, well, why aren't you doing your project?
Yeah.
And when I, again, looked at that, what I discovered was that I'm not fully expressing my greatness, and I don't really think I can make a difference. Like, I'm not big enough. And then I started to look, wow, I just play it just safe enough in my life. I take on just as much as I can, knowing I'll still do it all well. So it's part of that I'm right context for my life, you know.
Yes,
and
you're trying to stop doing that. You're trying to get out of this way.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, oh wow, like this doesn't work, you know. When I'm living, I feel like I can't make a difference, and I'm like coaching people on making a difference. It's just inconsistent, you know. So out of realizing that and getting authentic again, coming back to that authentic message of it's getting honest with yourself about where you're being inauthentic, there's so much freedom and power in that to just create a life you love.
I love that.
Whatever it is. And so that's where, at that moment, I created for myself in my life that I was going to be an extraordinary world leader. And so I've been in action on my project. I'm now doing a part 2 of it, and I'm going to create a Great I Am wall somewhere in San Diego, in Balboa Park, at the Harbor Island. I've started to reach out to artists. It'll be a place that I want to work with entrepreneurs, that they can express their own greatness to the world, you know, as they're building the future. So
that's incredible. I love that. Please make sure that you tell me all about that, because I'd love to be a part of that. That's exciting.
I would love for you to, and everyone to be a part of that. If you're listening and you know someone who knows how to build a wall somewhere, please let me know. I'd love to have you involved.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. I love your project. I think it sounds
Thank you.
I love it. And I love that what you just said about getting honest with yourself about being authentic. I think that's such a good point, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Pretend for so long that we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing, you know, and we push things off because we think, you know, I'll get to that tomorrow, or next Monday, I'll start it Monday. You know, like we do this often, and then Monday comes and goes and you still didn't do it, but you still think, oh, you know what, I'll just do it next week. This inauthenticity is what keeps us stuck.
Yeah, it's very constraining. It is. Yeah.
Right.
And all we have is now.
Yeah. All we have is now.
It is. Yeah.
Totally. I wanted to ask you too about your leadership coaching with Landmark. Can you talk more about why you got involved with Landmark and the difference it made for you?
Yes, absolutely. Let's see. So in 2015, I was let go from my job from an organization that I was part of helping to build. So it was really hard on me that I was let go. And I didn't tell anyone how hard it was on me. I just powered through it. I ended up starting my own company. And I stayed involved in the organization as a nonprofit, and I stayed involved, and I was in several conversations about the continued growth of it. And what was really going on was I was very resentful and bitter about being let go. And it totally impacted just my ability to be passionate about the organization. Yeah. And so that showed up as like, when I was asked for my opinion, I would say to myself, my opinions don't really matter. You're going to do what you want anyway. Yeah. And, you know, why are you asking me? You know, you don't really care what I think. And so those are things that, you know, we tell ourselves, and it starts to eat away at us. It was eating away at me, you know, and I was almost just miserable about it because I was still very involved. I mean, it was a big part of my life for 4 years. And so I had a lot of resentment and, you know, bitterness about it. And so a very good friend of mine suggested that I look at Landmark. And so I did. I signed up for the first part. It's called the Landmark Forum. I did it over the weekend. And in one weekend, what I discovered was that what happened was I was let go. And everything else, my opinions don't matter, you don't care what I think, all of that was stuff that I had made up.
Wow.
That wasn't really happening.
So how long did it take you to, just over 1 weekend? I guess Landmark does pretty fast, right? 1 week. Yeah. Well, because it was something that I just needed to see once. You know, it wasn't, that is why the work is so effective, because it's you're able to discover things about yourself and your life that it's like a blind spot. You know, as soon as you can see something in your blind spot, you can now choose something else. You have power back in a way. Like once I saw that wasn't really happening, people weren't really thinking my opinions don't matter, that was something that I made up, I had some power and some freedom around it, you know, and I could just... I find it's really amazing how we can live inside of these ideas in our head that didn't happen. We can live inside of conversations that never took place, right? We can live inside of this idea of what other people think about us when they've never even said the words. Absolutely. Yeah. I got my relationship with my sister back because of that. Oh. I thought she said something completely different. Oh. Yeah. It is. It is amazing to get, you know, the filters and the impact that they can have on our relationships and just our future, like living into the future. Like I could have, if I hadn't have seen that, like I could be living where I'm concerned if I'm going to be let go again. Yeah. Yeah. In fear. You'd be living in a state
And
of
be
fear.
living in fear. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I love
Needless
that.
to say, I got all my passion back.
Yeah. Yeah,
Free
I
from
can see it.
resentment and regret, really. That's the
And I can see
outcome.
it in your eyes. I can see it in your face. I can see it in your eyes that you're not being held back by anything. You can see
Yeah.
it in your face. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I wanted to ask, as a leadership coach, what is one thing that your ideal client would struggle with?
It's a great question. I would probably say fear of, there's fear. Like fear definitely comes up for me. Is there's a fear, whether it's a fear of success, or being fearful of failure, or not being good enough. That's definitely something that comes up.
Wow. Fear of success is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, especially like when it comes to fulfilling what matters to you. Yeah. That totally is a stopping point for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it was for me for a really long time too. Because I always thought, what happens once I get the thing, the big thing? What happens once I get it? What if I'm not good enough to hold on to it? Right? What if it doesn't want me? Right? It's like a whole ball of stuff that you have to work through. This is one of the things that I do really love about Landmark, is that they do get quick results really fast, but you have to be open and honest and in a space of receiving the information, because you're going to be mirrored, like you're going to be put in front of a lot of your crap, and you have to be willing to accept it and to then break through from it, right?
It takes courage.
Yeah, it takes courage.
Absolutely, a lot of courage. Yeah. And the lasting impact, like it's just so worth it. Anyone stopped anywhere, it's so worth taking a weekend.
That's a weekend out of your whole life.
It's your life.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, so what is like a big outcome that someone can expect going through Landmark training? I guess it would be this big flip, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's when I'm asked about it, or when I talk about it, a lot of times the first minute is like, how do I explain this? And so, because I don't really know what you're going to get out of it, because I don't know what's there for you. Right. For me, I had a kitten when I was 3, and I didn't even know that. Yeah. So I don't know what's there. I know that, relationships, and happiness, that freedom from resentment and regret, ability to make decisions without doubting yourself, self-confidence, ability to fully express your love. And what I say, sums it all up is living life powerfully and living a life you love. Really not being stopped by the places that you've historically been stopped, whether that's quitting your job or starting that business or having that conversation or forgiving that person. Yeah, anything.
Wow, that's huge. Okay, now I wanted to get into, as you know, the second portion of every interview. I ask 8 questions to every entrepreneur, because I feel that you are an empowered woman, and I want to know what inspires you and what gets you going. So my very first question is, what inspires you?
Let's see. I would say it's people fulfilling on what matters to them. It's why I do all the work that I do, because people can make such a difference in the world. And the world needs that. They need people, to really step in and take on, education or take on, other countries or needs, and the homeless. And there's so much that the world needs. And so working with people that go beyond where they're stopped and really fulfill on what matters to them, that inspires me. It is why I do what I do.
I love that. That's a nice answer. In your opinion, how do we live an awakened life?
Authenticity. Getting authentic with yourself. Looking, having the courage looking at what's not working. looking at where you're stopped, where you have a loss of power in your life, like, you know, looking at that and just being open, you know, being open that there's a possibility that things aren't the way that they wound up.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What can we learn when we fall down?
Stay committed. You know, when you fall, when you fall, you're clearly going after something.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you fall, it's just a breakdown. You know, just stay committed to what it is that you're committed to, and try a different approach.
Yeah, try a different approach. Keep going, right?
Yeah,
These
absolutely.
to help us move forward. I've got this myself personally. I decided a long time ago that I wanted to have as many different experiences as I possibly could. And I wanted to meet as many people as I possibly could. I was not going to be afraid of people. So I started to talk to strangers a lot. Like, this is from a really young age, actually. So now to this day, whenever I go outside, I talk to strangers all day, everywhere I go. And we get awesome conversations, right?
I can imagine.
It's true. And now it's become like a bit of an art, I think, too, because people will tell me some of their deepest secrets or the things that they really need someone to see them for, you know, almost within 5 minutes of getting to know them. Like, it's pretty remarkable, but I love it. And I think, you know, whenever I stumble, I just look at it as an experience that had to happen and what can I learn from it.
Totally.
So yeah, I love that whole idea about falling forward. You know, it's all about falling forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so now let me ask you this. How do we find the spirit then to get back up?
That's a good one. I would say really looking at what you're passionate about, looking at what matters, the difference that you want to make, what you're passionate about. Like, I think discovering what you're passionate about, that in itself is enough spirit. That's all the spirit you need to keep going, really.
Yeah. I like that answer. I wanted to ask you as well, what is the most difficult decision you've had to make to pursue your destiny?
Giving up being right.
Yeah.
That one's easy, for sure. Yeah, because that is something I really mastered.
Yeah.
And I actually, it still comes up. It doesn't go anywhere. It's always there. It's like hardwired.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the decision to notice it and then choose to be something else.
Yeah.
Vulnerable.
And this is what I think doing like amazing personal development work on a continuous basis does for you. You just get faster and faster at picking up the pieces again, don't you? And you get faster and faster at identifying when you're doing the thing that you really don't want to do.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, am I being right? Crap. Yeah. Because when I'm being right, it shuts down everyone. You know, people can't get a word in. Yeah. So it is, I'm always working on building that muscle of seeing it, just acknowledging it. Totally.
I met an old man once at a barnyard. It was like a barn house wedding. It was beautiful. Wow. And I saw this old couple. They were old, like really old. And they were married and holding hands and then dancing together. And it was so sweet and romantic. And I went up to the two of them when they were sitting back down at their table. My daughter, who's 12, was 3 at the time. And I said, can you tell me what your secret is to having such a beautiful symbiotic relationship? And he said, well, I know the answer in 2 seconds flat. And I said, what is it? And he goes, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? It just made me laugh. And she was like, oh,
yep.
So cute.
It's so true. No, I would not be here today in this conversation empowering women if I had not have let go of being right.
Wow, that's huge. That's really huge.
Completely.
Wow,
yeah.
Good for you. I'm very proud of you that you did that for yourself.
Thank you.
Now, let me ask you this. What is the purpose of the human experience?
I would say living life powerfully and living a life you love and empowering others to do that. as well.
Yes, yes, yes. Empowering others. That's huge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What about this one? What advice would you give your younger self?
Ask for help.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was another big breakthrough I had. I created this, I'm going to be an extraordinary world leader. And so I started taking actions consistent with that, with my work, taking on more work and expanding my role and coaching. I ended up going from one coaching class right into another. So there was some overlap, and my life was just growing and growing in front of me in a way that it never had. And not playing small, right? And I realized this was recently, actually. I realized I was getting ready to move, not far, and I had my whole apartment. It was 2 days before I was supposed to move, and I realized I didn't have any help to move. I didn't have a plan to move. Like, moving was at the very bottom of the priority list, and my apartment looked like I wasn't moving. I hadn't done anything. And I realized, wow, like that doesn't work. And then I started to look, and there were other things in my life that the ball was just getting dropped. Really. I mean, with, one of my participants, there was someone I was coaching, there was information I needed to share about his attendance, and just completely forgot to share it. And it could have had him drop out of the course. I mean, it was a big deal like that. Like, I just forgot to tell someone that could have, helped with that. And, he's working on a project for fatherhood, for fathers and single fathers, things they can do with their daughters. And he was just going to drop out, and the ball was in my court, And so I started to look. I wasn't asking for help anywhere in my life. Just balls were getting dropped. And I really got honest with myself again. And why don't I ask for help? I had never asked for help, ever. I
can identify with that.
Yeah, totally. I'm right. I don't need your help. I have it all under control. I want to, appear like I have it all together. What I realized is that I'm afraid to ask for help because I'm afraid people will think I'm incompetent.
Yes.
And that I'm weak. And that was very eye-opening.
And then it becomes a pattern, right? It just becomes a way of life after a certain period of time. You really don't need to ask anybody for help because you really can get things done by yourself until you start to drop the ball and you realize, shoot.
Yeah, and the impact of not asking for help. I mean, even at work. I mean, I work with startups at a company called Next Cubed, and we invest in startups that are making a difference in the world, solving real problems. One of them is accelerating clinical trials, so people can live longer. And when I'm not asking for help and I'm trying to take on everything, then the balls are getting dropped. And what if I don't provide, the marketing support that they need to really make it and be able to accelerate clinical trials? People's lives are on the line. So getting really present to the impact beyond how I'm going to look, if I'm going to look bad, like to the people whose lives are at stake. I really had to make a choice, like I've got to ask for help. And so I immediately called my work, my boss, and I'm like, I am no longer going to be someone who doesn't ask for help. And I shared honestly, like, this is why I haven't been asking for help. I'm afraid you're going to think I'm incompetent and that I'm weak. And those are hard conversations to have. Thankfully, I work for an amazing company that, supports growth and really making a difference as well. And so, needless to say, I had 10 people come help me move 2 days later. People want to help. It's like a whole new world.
People want to help people who help themselves. They just really do. And I think that you made a really good point. If you weren't I think the very fear of the thing is what we make happen when we don't ask for help. So for you, it was that you would look incompetent and weak, which is eventually what would have happened when you're dropping the ball and everything's falling apart. You look incompetent.
I believe what exists persists.
Yes.
If you're resisting something, it's going to show up.
Over and over and over.
Over and over, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you're stepping into your leadership too, which is really important. That's why it's okay to ask for help, because it shows that you know where you need it, and you're asking people who can help you. So
yeah, totally
important. My last question for you is, what is the purpose of forgiveness?
The purpose of forgiveness is the end of suffering. Really, I think when we don't forgive people, we're the ones suffering.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and so I think there's a lot of freedom in there to forgive. Yes. So I'm a firm believer in forgiveness. Life is too short.
Yeah, thank you so much. Your answers to all these questions were lovely and thoughtful. Thank you for that. Now let's talk about your free gift.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm going to host a 1-hour call for anyone that would like to join. And we're going to talk about fulfilling on what really matters to you. So if you've got, something in your life that you want to make happen and you're just stopped, or it's something that you've thought about for, even 10 years, bring that and let's talk about that and look at that. So
that's perfect. Should we give the date of it right now and the time?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to be a Zoom call that Maggey is putting on for you, and it's going to be on Wednesday, March 21st at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So 10 a.m. Pacific time on March 21st, and we're going to have a link for you under this video with your free gift. So I guess that's it. Thank you so much, Maggey. This was so awesome to see you and spend time with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're awesome.
It's been wonderful.
Oh, yes, for sure. As always, Maggey and I would love to know what you think. So if there's some part of this interview today that resonated with you, or you feel like you identify, or something that you can use in your life, please, hit reply to this email and let us know what it is. I'll pass on all your comments to Maggey. And thank you everybody for joining us again today on The Empowered Woman. This is a place that you can come to learn how to challenge your fears, how to powerfully live the life you want, and how to step into your influence as a woman. So thank you everybody so much. Thanks a lot, Maggey, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
All right, bye.